you see, and here's why I have a problem with it.
Yeah.
When you look at a play, and this is not a criticism of any one specific website that categorizes these numbers.
Yeah.
But the way these contracts are done, it necessarily results in bullcrap making its way to those of us who are trying to understand where these deals fit. I'm looking at one specific website in particular, and they have Tyreek Hill listed at average value of contract at $30 million, and it's just not. It's not $30 million. That thing's got a phony $45 million salary on the back end that drove the average for new money up to $30 million. So that's a clear example of the disconnect between what we're told and what's real.
Yes.
He's not making $30 million a year from the Miami Dolphins. It's 3 years, $75 million. He's getting $25 million a year from the Dolphins, and that's a big difference when we're trying to figure out where these other guys are going to fall. That's a $5 million range between phony baloney average value and real average value.
Yeah, it is. And I would think that's probably when it went into this, Stephon Diggs number. And I'm sure it's somewhat, close to that, if not north of that. But you're right. You can't ever pay attention to the total numbers like we've talked about. It means nothing. It's basically like guaranteed money, and then, okay, just try to figure out how many years they're going to be on the hook for that guaranteed money, or what makes them sense to where now they can get off the hook for the rest of the contract. And more times than not, every contract in football, even when it says 6 years, blah, 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 it's a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal, period. That's it. There's no such thing, other than maybe the rare occasional Patrick Mahomes, or somebody like that where you go, oh, this is a linchpin of the organization for a long time, which is almost always going to be a quarterback. Everybody else is on a 2 to 3 year deal. Even the superstars in the sport, that's just the way it works. And, yeah, a lot of these numbers are phony baloney.
That's one of the reasons why with a quarterback contract, the idea that Deshaun Watson is fully guaranteed, it's really not that big of a leap, because you rarely see a franchise quarterback that we know and accept as a franchise quarterback get cut 2 or 3 years in.
Right.
The team always keeps him. It's these other positions where the first 2 or 3 years become critical, because after the first 2 or 3 years, there is an opportunity for the team to move on. Devontae Adams. Now, look, he's the next one on the list at $28 million. And the difference with him is that's a real $28 million average, because there's no new money in there. It's a contract that he signed from scratch. But he's 30 years old. It's 5 years, $140 million at $28 million per year. And we've got the breakdown somewhere at PFT after this deal was done. It's far from $28 million per year as a practical matter. It's more like 22 or 23, which is still pretty good. But this is the gamesmanship. And it's funny because, Chris, there are some people out there who think, and they act and they tell their audience like they've just figured this out. They're the first ones to tell the world that this is how it is. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been telling people for 20 years that these deals are crap and we need to peel them back and break them down when we get them through the pipeline, and then we can tell people the truth. And that's one thing that the insiders, the information robots, as they call them sometimes, yes, derisively, they're not providing anything more than the basic information that's being spoon-fed to them. That perpetuates a lie onto the audience. We either want to be truthful with the audience or we want to lie to the audience. And there's an element of truth. Yes, there's a new contract, but there's also an element of lie. When Schefter or Rappaport or any of the others that are hanging on their phones 24 hours a day, they're plugged into the matrix like Neo, they're tormented, they can't sleep, they don't want to be 30 seconds behind the tweet that comes from their competitor. They're passing along what they get without scrutiny, because if they pause, if they hesitate, they have lost. That is that's and it's not specific to them. If you jump onto that merry-go-round, that's how it works. This is to the audience. Understand that part of that truth is going to come with a lie. They're telling you the truth that there's a contract. They're lying to you about what it's worth. They know they're lying to you about what it's worth. They don't care that they're lying to you about what it's worth. They view it as an occupational hazard. Yeah. And then the truth will come out eventually. Yeah. That's just how it works. It's how it works. So
yeah, but
anyway,
you know what drives, you know what I like about you, and you always try to set the record straight, and hopefully we can continue to do that. Hopefully we can even find better ways to do it. Like, maybe next time somebody signs a contract, you could write, hey, blah, 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 signs for this contract, and then parentheses, you could put it actually what it is. Like but
you can't find, but until you get
I know, you don't find the details until later. Right. I know. That's really the problem. But to me too, Mike, to what we're talking about here, and with a little bit of this, and is always bothered me. See, this is where I think too, like, because of these numbers and the things that are thrown out there, this is why fans get mad at NFL players at times for, oh, they're making so much money to play a game and blah, blah, blah. Where I want to go, again, it for whatever reason, it seems like there's more backlash in football than other sports. And I think a lot of fans don't know the nuances or don't realize that when they say they see a 6-year, $120 million contract for a baseball player and they see the same contract for a football player, that it's not anything near the same thing. That the baseball player can never have another hit in his life and is going to see all $120 million, period. Nothing. Same with the NBA player. And then the NFL, it's not that way. To where I feel like it gets used against players sometimes in the court of public opinion, and that's where I don't like it at times because I think it kind of puts a bad look on players to a degree.
And that brings us back to a point that I've made in the past. At some point during this recent cycle of not just big contracts, but overly inflated for the purposes of lying to the audience about what the contract is worth. Why does a player, like if you're Tyreek Hill, and you're actually making 75 and the more accurate guaranteed number is $72.2 million over the next 3 years. Why do you want people to think you're making $30 million a year? Why do you want that? What do you benefit from having people think that you are making more than you actually are? What benefit does that have to you? Now, I guess when it comes to just like who's the fastest, who's making the most money, something basic like that, alpha male crap.
Exactly,
right?
That's what it is.
I'm making more money than you.
Right.
Because it does bring more resentment, more problems. You're going to have more people who want stuff from you. Hey, you're making $30 million a year. Well, actually, I'm not. It's only not that it matters. It's only 72.2 over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So please don't ask me for that donation. But it's driven by the agents. That's the reality. And here's where I balance out, because you got the Richard Shermans of the world that think that, the Florio's pro agent. Look, the agents are the ones who are telling the lies because they want to take these phony numbers, not all of them, but some of them, and they know who they are, and they do it knowing that it's a lie. They want to boost their own profile. They want to be able to take that contract they did. They want to take that tweet from Schefter, and they want to use it to recruit their next wave of clients. And that's always happening. With every group that's in the NFL getting paid, there's a new group coming in that these agents are trying to get. So if you have that feather in your cap as you begin recruiting these guys, hey, look, I negotiated the richest contract in NFL history at this position. You should hire me. That's been something that I've known about since I first got into this business 20 years ago. The agents have an incentive to lie about the value of the deal, to push it up, to put them in a better position to get to the front of the line for the next guy that they're trying to sign. That's why they lie about the numbers. And again, so everybody, look, the lie originates with the agent who has a reason to do it. The lie gets perpetuated by the information robot who has a reason to do it. And to the extent that I've found a niche in this business, and Chris, you're part of it now with me, you've been sucked into it as well, we'll take a breath, we'll wait for the contract, and then we'll tell people the truth. Whatever it is,
right,
good, bad, or otherwise, we'll tell them the truth.
Yeah, no, I think we got to continue to fight that fight. And to your point, the player's not gonna come out and go, oh, actually, it's not the richest contract. Yeah, the player likes that too. I mean, it's walk in the locker room. I'm making $30 million a year. Most of the guys in the locker room don't really know the details. There's like 2 or 3 guys that'll probably, if he said, I'm making $30 million a year, 2 or 3 guys in the locker room will probably go, it's really 25. It's really 25.
Well, and you know who else says nothing about it? Not just the player. You know who else stays silent about the lie that gets told?
The team?
The team.
Yeah,
the
right.
team. You know why? You know why?
What's your thought?
I know. This was one of the chapters that didn't make it to Playmakers. This was one of the one that got put on the cutting room floor because we had to, cut it off at 110. Maybe we'll put it in Playmakers too. This is a true story. The team will keep its mouth shut because it desperately wants the player to be happy with his contract.
Sure.
So whatever number the agent wants to put out there, whatever it is, the team assumes the agent's doing it with the blessing of the player, and this makes the player happy.
Right.
The team wants the player to be happy. Yeah, the deal isn't as good as it's maybe being suggested. Yeah, and the other benefit for the team is it creates the impression that they're wizards at dealing with the salary cap. How did the Rams give Bobby Wagner a 5-year, $50 million deal? Well, they didn't. That's how.
Yeah.
But here, let me tell you the story. Pete's saying we need to go to break. Pete, I'm telling my story, damn it. Javon Walker.
Oh,
he signed a contract with the Raiders 2007-2008 timeframe.
Right.
And this was beautiful. It's the only time a team ever publicly pushed back against the report regarding the value of a deal. The only time it ever happened. The Raiders issued a statement saying that the reports regarding the value of the Javon Walker deal are false. And here's the cherry on top. Here's the rest of the story. The Raiders were wrong. The reports were accurate. It was a truthful representation of the contract. So the one time a team says fake news about the value of a contract, it actually was accurate and it was truthful.
Jeez.
So now you know the rest.
Now we know why the Raiders weren't very good there, late 2007,
Yes.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They didn't even know what they were paying guys. It's
The
amazing.
first time, the only time a team is pushed back is the one time that the initial numbers that were propagated by the agent were actual and truthful and correct numbers.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.